Hey, 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 asymmetric flow, one way to go. Buy low when the market dips, sell high, link the curves. Collateral shifts, no need to think. Got my 0 to 1, constant price of product. P0 reference, X0 rate, hyperbolic edge, parametric twist, carbon ignites, DeFi ignites, strategy loops, buy, sell, repeat, MEV block, no sandwich, concentrated power, capital type, curves adjust, on-chain fly, carbon ignites, DeFi ignites, carbon ignites, DeFi ignite. Orders live, tweak without the close, range bound biz, where the action grows, no impermanent loss, just trading views, bid ass fees, market maker cues. Link pairs, post, Ethereum core, arbitrage bought some from Bancor, roots to future flows, decentralized orders, open doors, got my bends, invariants, carbon evo, stories untold, DeFi remake, in code we trust, asymmetric thrust, parametric dust. Carbon ignite, DeFi ignite, strategy loop, buy, sell, repeat, MEV block, no sandwich, concentrated power, capital type, curves adjust, on-chain fly, carbon ignites, DeFi ignites, carbon ignite, DeFi ignite.
What's up, guys, and welcome to COTI Confidential, episode 8 on this June 10th, Wednesday edition. How's it going, guys?
Hey, all going super. How you doing?
I'm better now. You guys know we had a little bit of drama with storms and electricity and hydro and all of that kind of stuff, but we're good now and we're ready to rock. So it's good to have you guys here.
It's good to be here.
This episode is all about COTI Carbon DeFi, but Amateo, you broke some news yesterday, and if you guys have been paying attention in the space, you know the narrative, right? Like, institutions will not move sensitive data on chain without confidentiality, right? And users are sick of having everything exposed. Privacy isn't just a feature anymore; it's the fundamental missing layer of Web3, and that's why COTI is positioning themselves this way, right? So yesterday you broke this strategic partnership with the Midnight Foundation. So just really quick before we get everything rolling here, we knew that we had to say something about it. And because you're here, if you could let it rip, man, we'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. I'm actually really excited today to get into the Carbon DeFi conversation and hear from Jen and Mark and cover all of this. So I won't belabor too long because I'm going to be learning and listening in as well as you guys are today. But yeah, last COTI Confidential, I mentioned that we've had a banger in store for everybody, and here it is. So we officially partnered with the Midnight Foundation, and this is as you guys know, COTI and Cardano, thus Midnight, have some long history. And this was really an opportunity to leverage that to explore how do we now take this next chapter together via privacy. And they have such a fantastic team. And so really the details of what this is clearly laid out in the blog. We're going to be working on privacy standards. We're going to be working on abilities to connect ecosystem to ecosystem. As some of you might see out there, Midnight is quite large and quite established. And we're excited about this opportunity to work together to connect the ecosystem and embrace cross-chain composability wherever we can. Some of you may or may not know already that the Night token is already live on COTI network. And we're going to look at additional ways that we can integrate the Night token into the network and see how we can continue to bridge more via privacy on demand. We're going to be working on some research projects together, and of course, exploring how we can empower the builder and enterprise community to use our various protocols. So they have a great team there. It's been an honor and a pleasure to coordinate and work with them, and excited for where this partnership will take us.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So let's get to it. Let's bring our guests in. Jen and Mark are here. What's up, guys? How's it going?
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well.
So great to have you guys back. So great to have you guys back. You know, you're like Soeren and I's favorite guest. Like, well, Amateo's part of the show now, right?
Yeah,
So
you guys
can say that.
A little bit better than me, I think.
You're consistent contributors, so you can't. You're in a different category now. But
totally.
It's so great to have you guys back. And,
it's always
thank you
nice
for
to be
being
here. No, always. We love to be guests on COTI Confidential and to tune in and to hear all of the news that I may miss on my feed. So it's always a great show, whether we are on it or not. Appreciate you having us here. And congratulations on the new exciting partnership as well.
Thanks, Jen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, excited for you guys to be here too.
Thank you.
All right. So before we get into the carbon specific stuff, I'm going to pass the mic over to Soeren, and he's going to honor me by reading one of my articles today, which is going to be really cool. So I can't wait to hear his spin on it. So let's go.
Yeah, I mean, this was one of these times where Tracer just put out an absolute banger, and I thought it was so well describing the situation we are in now, and drawing some very obvious parallels that Tracer has the advantage of doing because he's been in the space for a long time. So I think it's important everyone hears this. So basically, Tracer put out a nice post titled "First Time," and a lot of our community members may not have been in a severe bear market like this before, and they may justifiably so be quite nervous. So here's a little bit of a history lesson and much more than that. So why some veteran COTI holders aren't sweating this chop that we're finding ourselves in now. Staring at charts during a sideways grinding market is exhausting. When you watch the price chop around 1 cent to 1.2 cents, it's easy for the timeline to get clouded by short-term fatigue, seeing tons of this every week, week in, week out. But when you do zoom out and look at the history of the COTI network, we've been here before. And what happened next, last time we were in this kind of situation, drastically changed the trajectory of the project. And to understand where COTI V2 is heading, you have to look back at the dark days of late 2019. And this was even before I came into the space. I came shortly after that. The all-time low and the shift. So picture this, November 2019, the trust chain mainnet had just launched over the summer, but the broader crypto market was still nursing a massive hangover from the 2018 crash. Bitcoin was struggling and altcoins were bleeding out. Sounds familiar, right? On November 7th, COTI hits an absolute rock bottom all-time low of about half a penny. So basically half of where we are today. The sentiment was pure apathy. Early retail investors were exhausted, capitulating and walking away. Behind the scenes, the team was aggressively building and rethinking their approach. They realized that the market didn't just want another isolated DApp payment coin. They adapted. They launched the treasury to create a massive supply sink and give the token some real utility. They secured the mandate to build AdaPay and the Jet stablecoin, weaving themselves deeply into the Ada ecosystem, which is going to sound very familiar with the announcement that Amateo made yesterday in mind. When the 2021 bull market finally woke up, COTI was like a coil spring. The narrative caught fire, and the price went from half a penny to an all-time, from half a penny all-time low to an all-time high of 68 cents. So how do we put that in the context of the current cycle? So fast forward to today, and the parallels to 2019 and its exhaustion phase are very, very obvious. They really are. Long-term holders are tired of the drawdown. The fodders are having free reign, and the market is trying its hardest to shake out all the weak hands. Just like in 2020, COTI is in the middle of a massive fundamental pivot. This one, however, is significantly bigger than just the Cardano integration. Migrating from an isolated layer 1 DAG to an ETH L2 is a complete wiring of the network's DNA. For years, COTI had to fight for every drop of liquidity by dragging users into was essentially a siloed network. Now they're plugging directly into the world's financial rails on Ethereum. And the missing piece of Ethereum is exactly what we're delivering. The missing piece is privacy. This is why the COTI v2 narrative is so potent. Ethereum has a glaring privacy problem. Everyone agrees about this. Everyone understands this because everything's public. And there's a massive push within the Ethereum community to make privacy a top priority. If we ever want true institutional adoption, complex decentralized finance, like private order books or confidential on-chain voting, Ethereum need a robust private layer. This exactly is where COTI's tech stack separates itself. COTI is bringing garbled circuits to the table, which is faster, lighter, and highly composable for secure multi-party computation. But we're not stopping there. We're also actively integrating COTI Nightfall, bringing powerful CK tech into the fold. And by combining the blazing speed of garbled circuits with the proven security and institutional credibility of CK-based infrastructure, we're building a comprehensive multi-layered privacy shield for Ethereum. So we're no longer pricing COTI against legacy payment coins or anything like that, like we used to. The market eventually is going to have to start comparing us to the massive L2 networks like Arbitrum, Optimism, Base, and so forth. Yeah, and this is the really important part. History shows that it's very, very prudent to pay attention when things feel the quietest, which is what they are now. So there you have it.
Thank you. That was weird, man. Like, honestly, just to hear you echoing that. And it's kind of like, so this is like when things are kind of bleak in a bear market, back in the day, like what would we all do? We'd draw lines on charts and we'd speculate, right? So this was kind of like after years of doing that, and most of us always being wrong, this is like kind of, instead of drawing lines on the chart, this was like my contribution to that now. And it's like, well, what parallels can we draw? And this is what I saw. And I just love how, guys, I had no idea that this midnight thing was coming. So I just love how the ADA thing was in there, and then talking about COTI Nightfall. So now we have something else to talk about, and I'm sure that we're going to be able to convince Amateo to come back in a week or so when he has time to talk more about Night. But yeah, that's the story.
We talked a little bit about this last week, also for Mark and Jen. I'm sure you guys are seeing the same thing. You know, we are somehow living under this very obvious illusion, but very powerful illusion that blockchain is dead, tokens are dead. Yeah, even though we all know perfectly well that it's not. Yeah, and we know perfectly well that history, one way or the other, is going to repeat itself. Yeah, but we are living under this very powerful illusion, and at some point you almost start believing it, and some people actually start believing it. Yeah.
Blockchain dies every 4 years.
Oh, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, but yeah, blockchain dies every 4 years. Honestly, like this is a part of the or like, I don't know if I want to call it a market cycle necessarily, but maybe let's call it a sentiment cycle. And I think it's because for any emerging technology, there's a sort of Gartner hype process where, the promise and optimism sort of comes first, and then people either get bored or they become distracted by other emerging primitives. So I think that in this particular case, things like the SpaceX IPO and the Anthropic and OpenAI IPOs are driving more audience attention towards the AI emerging technologies. And of course, it's ridiculous to think that at any one time there can only be one developing technology that is, super important. But the space is always shaped by, narrative and attention. And so it's like it's a cultural phenomenon more than anything else. But the fundamentals haven't changed. And in the case of a blockchain like COTI, where there is actually a reason for the chain to exist, right? So I think for a lot of cases, when people are looking at specific layer 2 narratives and that kind of thing, I would say that it is drawing some reasonable criticism as to whether or not a lot of these alternative blockchains were even required in the first place, or if they were just kind of riding the blockchain narrative. And so I think for many of those projects, there are going to be these sort of culling phases where the market rejects, some of them simply because they aren't necessary or aren't required or aren't unique. But that's not something that COTI has to wrestle with, because to my knowledge, it's still the only blockchain with garbled circuits, and more to the point, the only blockchain with garbled circuits and now zero knowledge proofs at a time where privacy and confidentiality are becoming more and more important. So yeah, this is a sentiment cultural phenomenon sort of thing. It's got nothing to do with how good the technology is or isn't. It's something that comes and goes every time.
Well said.
Yeah. Thanks for jumping in, man, because I was kind of going to go to you there. So that's excellent. I know that when we set this up, it was all about Carbon's MCP and integrating COTI. So Jen, I don't know where you'd like to start, but like, you guys got a ton of stuff. I guess, have a bunch of stuff to talk about. So where do you want to start this? Because I still, like, at the end of the show, we got to talk a little bit about Mark's secret, which is no longer a secret. And then I have a final question for Mark that I've been dying to ask him for like over a year. So
I knew the non-secret secret was going to be coming up at some point. So I hope Mark was prepared for that. Sure. I don't think he was going to be on the call without having to, answer some questions and do a little explaining. So no, I think with the MCP server, first of all, really exciting, because when Amateo and I first connected on this, it just worked out really well time-wise, that COTI was doing their, agent skills and we were working on the MCP server. And so when we had connected, it was like, hey, we've got this going on. Well, seriously, because we've got this going on. And it turned into this entire DeFi workflow. Like, it just worked out really, really well. So, for anybody who is unaware, we had both posted about how you have your agent. Now you can use the skills through COTI to create a wallet. And Amateo, I'm sure you guys have spoken about this before, and Amateo can add more to this, but to just kind of walk through the flow, you can use COTI to create your wallet, to call for funding. You guys are, funding these wallets to perform actions on COTI, whether it's send private messages, things of the sort. But now with the Carbon DeFi MCP server, you're able to connect directly to that as well, and not only pull live data. So it's, what are the most popular trading pairs on COTI network at the moment? What trading pairs are the most active, things of this sort. But you can also call the MCP server to create these strategies to simulate, to back test them against that historical data first before creating the strategies. So it's basically anywhere, like any of those capabilities that you have on Carbon DeFi at the moment, working directly through the contracts or through the app itself, you can use an agent and the MCP server to perform those, including the adjusting and everything else. So it really wound up just time-wise being perfect with what COTI was working on, with what we were working on. And I think that says a lot about, one, kind of where the industry is heading in a sense, right? But then also for both of us to be aware of it and to be building towards that same sort of thing without knowing, and to have kind of filled in each other's blanks in a sense. It worked out very nicely.
So let's just do something really quick here, because I see this fatigue in our community and all over the place. And it's like a lot of us are so into agents and skills and everything else like that, that we know what all this stuff means and we're like following it. But for some people who don't really, like, we get this, like I've talked to Amateo about this, is like, why are we spending so much time on agents? Maybe people don't know what an MCP server is. So let's just like really quickly, if one of you, anybody can jump in here and just, can we preface what we're talking about here and what it actually means, please? This is something we used to like to do on COTI Confidential, is like kind of explain things before we get really into it. So
yeah, Amateo, you unmuted. You want to jump in?
Sure.
Yeah.
Admittedly, when it comes to anything technical, I feel like Mark is more articulate than I am, and I'm a pretty articulate guy.
Not just
so
you.
I'm just gonna say that I always get complimented for being articulate, but I think Mark wins this one by all means. So, but I'll just walk through this at a high level. Skills essentially are a set of files that are in Markdown generally. That is any AI or LLM that you're using, whether that's Claude, OpenAI, if you're running your own agent with OpenClaw, Hermes, whatever these tools are, skills are a set of instructions that are embedded in Markdown files to tell the AI what you would like it to do and perform what kind of action and how to go about doing specific things. Because as an organization, when you publish your own native skills, you're creating a trusted source of instructions for the AI to perform a various set of actions that you want it to take, which means that that AI can go from just giving you a response on how something works to actually executing an action autonomously. In our case, that would be creating a wallet. In Carbon DeFi's case, once the MCP set up, it's actually calling the markets, placing these trades, these orders, etc. So when you look at an agent, there's various elements of the stack. The skills are the foundational instructional set for the AI to actually create actions. But then you have to unlock the AI to actually perform those actions. And the best things that you can do to enable that in a trusted manner, the most obvious way is an API key, right? So you might be familiar with an API key, but then Anthropic invented like an MCP server, which can be a bundling of information, instructions, APIs that work really, really well with these agents to be able to pull in this information and execute trusted action. And they're also very compatible to build. So essentially, it allows a really vibrant ecosystem of agents to act autonomously in a trusted way to perform a variety of actions or series of actions across multiple things that's all embedded in the memory of the agent. So you can set it up to run automatically, or you can have Claude or Codex be a way that you communicate to do advanced things that you used to do manually.
Awesome, man. And I'm just going to quickly share my screen because I forgot about this, Jen. And if anybody wants to read more, there is this excellent article here from May 21st that may talk a little bit more about that. Right, Jen?
It's really good.
Thank you.
I will let's post links to our X to this for after the show. But yeah, let's continue with carbon specifically. But I just wanted to kind of talk about that real fast. So
Well, first I need a sanity check. How did I do, Mark? Anything to build on with what I shared?
No, perfect. I think you expressed it in more detail, I think, than even I would have. I think when I'm talking to other people about what an MCP is, I kind of describe it as like it's the docs for an agent, really. So like, if you're drafting something, um, expecting a human to read it and interact with it, there are certain formats that are kind of standard, right? Like there's the Git book sort of style documentation that, you know, people familiar with how to read these things kind of know what they're looking at. The MCP really is kind of just a standardized documentation where instead of a human observer, it's going to be an AI observer, and that's really it. It's a standardized presentation so that large language models can process things and execute actions and that kind of thing. But yeah, your description was exactly spot on.
Wow, that's got to feel good, Amateo, eh?
Yeah, I appreciate that. But I think that this is the key here that Mark's really touching on is that there's a whole new way to make all of this technology that we've already built native to agents. And the MCP and the skills allow us to do this. And I think that what the Carbon DeFi MCP specifically is really compelling and quite robust in terms of giving agents the ability to access this across multiple networks, not just COTI network, but multiple networks, and do pretty advanced strategy setting. And so I'm excited to dig into some of this here because I think we're getting a lot of like basic functions out of a lot of decentralized exchanges that are giving agents the ability to perform basic things. But doing some of this more advanced and robust liquidity management and strategy management, I think is quite unique.
Yeah.
So Jen, I know I kind of iced you, so I'm just gonna hand it back to you so that you can kind of make sure that we lead through everything you want to talk about. Okay, so it's the mic's yours. I think Mark's got something.
Yeah, Mark, did you want to add something to what Amateo was saying?
Oh yeah, just kind of briefly, because I think we throw around the word standard when we're talking about MCP server stuff, but it's still really up to the person who's composing that to sort of decide what they want to expose to the large language models. And you'll find that there are a lot of I don't know, I kind of want to use the term boilerplate MCP sort of functionality around the industry right now that's really not providing large language models with very much detail, right? Like I think the best way that I can explain it is that I kind of treat these AI agents as being like highly sophisticated, you know, over educated specialists in like every application that you want to point them at. And so it can feel like a bit of a wasted opportunity to not give that AI access to like the entire control panel of a protocol. And a lot of that stuff is usually not exposed on the like user interface. And so I think the naive approach when you're building an MCP is like, well, it's just the UI, but for an agent. And what we've really done on the Carbon DeFi side is say, well, actually, it's all of the stuff that's exposed on the UI, and literally all of the stuff that isn't exposed on the UI. So the agent can have full access to the protocol and get all of the data structures and everything that's kind of implied or explicit in how the contracts are organized. And that allows agents to achieve things that even an expert human user with access to like the web app would not be able to achieve. And I think that that's the I'm hoping that over time that becomes more of the standard industry mentality when it comes to MCP servers.
we're so early in this that I think if we as an industry really wanted to set a different standard, like what Mark is saying, rather than just saying this has already become the standard, then we can actually create an entirely new standard and really start exposing all of these things and making DeFi that much more accessible to users. Amateo, I know you were saying it's making it accessible to the agents, and of course behind the agent is a user. But I think for
Exactly.
so many, the way that the agent can break down these different concepts, or the way that you can speak to the agent and discover these different sorts of capabilities in a way that you might not be able to, achieve this sort of thing, like the recurring strategies, for example. Any trader is going to, like professional trader, they want to buy low and they want to sell high, and they want to find a trading pair that has that sort of volatility profile. But Carbon DeFi is the only DEX out there where you can actually achieve this. So when you say, I just want to buy low and sell high, I just want to start buying at this and I just want to buy down to this, or I want to start selling at this and I want to sell up to this. Like it makes it that much more accessible to users as well, like through the agent, who can then kind of explain these things a little bit more thoroughly than you might be able to, interpret from the docs yourself, or accurately to a different level of understanding, I think, which is why the MCP is so nice. I can continue talking about the MCP if we'd like. Yes?
Yeah, let's get into how how does it work or something, something along those lines. Any other details?
Yeah, so any MCP compatible agent can access it. And you can see Tracer sharing his screen here. So it's 25 tools across the 6 different strategy types. And I think really Bancor was kind of the first to introduce like this whole concept of strategies to begin with, right? It was mostly providing liquidity and then just trading. But the fact that you can actually go in and create these strategies with this real intent, right? What do I want to achieve from this? So you have the limit orders, you have the range orders, the recurring strategies, and then you have your concentrated, your full range, and just going in there and swapping as well. But as Mark was saying, it's not just what you have on the UI. Like when you're going to the app, you can actually ask the agent and through the MCP to pull live data. So on the app, it's updated every, I want to say 24 hours. It could be, more, don't quote me on it, but it's certainly not live in the moment updating trades and transactions, I believe it is. But for the most popular token or the most active token pair or trading pair, something of that sort, the UI is not updated every second, right? So this is the sort of information that you can get. You're able to gather insights from the agent and the MCP server that you wouldn't be able to access otherwise just through the UI as a trader, or a user. I mentioned earlier, you can go in and backtest these sorts of strategies as well. So depending, your agent might be able to say, you know what, this is a recommendation that I would make. We are very cautious when we were creating the MCP. We were very cautious because you can give it these sorts of capabilities. Anything, basically we have an API on the back end, right? This is what you can access through the MCP. We chose not to allow for immediate strategy creation. So what the agent and the MCP will do is take what the instructions that you've given it, create the strategy accordingly, and then post, if you ask, any sorts of warnings. Hey, you asked me for this, but this is buying high and selling low, something of that sort, right? So it'll post these warnings, it'll give those to you, any red flags, and then you will actually confirm the transaction yourself. So you're not giving it your keys, it's not accessing your wallet. It is creating the strategy as if you were going through that workflow on the UI, and then it can either take you to the UI or to the contracts itself so that you can confirm that, and you're actually able to see what it is it's created and confirm visually that this is what you wanted to achieve. So we are very cautious. We chose not to give it access to the user's keys. But through the wallet creation and through the funding and with this workflow that we were talking about with the skills with COTI, you do have that entire workflow. So like I was saying, you have that, now you have this you're able to achieve with it. So yeah, that was that was something that we chose not to do. But you can see here the analytics, the tools, the trade. So really anything that you can achieve on the UI, and then all sorts of data that you're not able to as well.
Soren, you've kind of been quiet there. I'm waiting for you to jump in, man.
I'm just sucking it all up. But what I think is very exciting, and if I understand Jen correctly, so you can run, for instance, your Tracer, you have this COTI recurring strategy, buying COTI when it's low and selling when it's high. And what I'm understanding from what Jen says is that the agent will red flag if the market gets into a very volatile state.
The agent, depending on how you've trained your agent and what you're asking it to do, right?
Yeah, but let's say, or we can just say it's a COTI recurring strategy, and I want to buy COTI between 1/8 of a cent to a cent. Yeah. But then the strategy kind of switches off if all of a sudden we see the market, a big capitulation crash, and the market swings down to say 0.5 cent. Yeah. So the agent will give you a red flag so you can adjust things accordingly, if that's how I understood it.
You can ask it to. It's able to read like market pricing, right? Like what is the current market price of this if you wanted to? And that's something that we report, like you can see it on the UI, right? So you're able to. If it drops, you can say something like 10% below. And this you can't do. And this is depending on your agent, of course, right? But hypothetically speaking, if you wanted to ask your agent, okay, this is my strategy. Show me my live strategy on Carbon DeFi. This is where my ranges are. Now, if the market goes 15% below my buy range, let me know. It's not going to adjust it automatically for you because, again, it's not going to perform any sorts of activity or transactions without you signing off on it. But if you have your agent,
it is going to make me aware that there might be an advantage to take this band and move it down 15% or move it up 40% if something else happens. Yeah,
it can. Through, like, I would say that's more agent than it would be MCP. For the MCP and the warnings and that sort of thing, that's more like this. Are you sure you want to be doing this?
Right.
If you happen to mix this up and say, okay, I want to buy here, and it happens to be that sell range, and you just aren't, we were talking about being articulate earlier, right? Like if you're just not conveying this clearly to the agent, or it misinterprets and it says, are you sure you want to do this? The same way that we would red flag it on the UI and say, hey, you're buying lower than where the market currently, like you're buying here. Is this really where you want to be buying? Is this really how you want to be setting up this strategy? Now, if you wanted to go further and train your agent and say, Mark, you unmuted. Do you want to add?
Yeah, so I just want to sort of maybe disentangle two different concepts here. So when Jen was referring to sort of these like asking for explicit confirmation from the user, I would refer to this as hallucination mitigation, which at least for the time being is a completely unsolved problem in AI, and depending on which school of thought you choose to follow, it could be that hallucinations are going to be with us, forever. It's just a hard baked artifact of the way that LLMs operate. And so when we say that, the way that the MCP is structured is so that the agent cannot, will not be able to just execute without first showing you what it's going to execute. That's how we sort of mitigate the hallucination problem. And that's not an MCP server issue. That's a large language model issue. So yeah, it's very risky, and probably no one should ever fully delegate financial decisions to an agent specifically because of the hallucination problem. And so in this particular case, the MCP does not allow an agent to take an action before showing the user exactly what that action is going to be. And then what Soeren is referring to is basically how much financial advice do you want to subscribe to if the large language model is offering it. And that's obviously something that you can do, and that's MCP adjacent, but not explicitly encoded in the MCP. That's going to be something that the large language model itself and the agent that you're running is going to be capable of. But let me give you an example of something that you can do with like in an agentic flow that's slightly different from what you might get on the user interface. At the moment with carbondefi, we've got a huge amount of information in the back end, and then it would be completely overwhelming to sort of present a user with all that information on the web app. But one of the things that you can do, for example, is say, okay, search all pairs, or for a specific pair like COTI, G-COTI, say, okay, show me all of the positions that users have set up this way. And that's a lot of scrolling and like looking through things individually. Whereas with the MCP, it's like, can you just provide me everything with a list, and then give me a range order that's between the 25th and 75th quartile of the bids and asks or something like that. And that's something that the MCP will allow. So it will scrape all of the data from all of the strategies that have already been created in the book, and then provide you with very specific information about where the bidding and asking ranges are, what the average spread is, and that sort of thing. So that if you wanted to create, for example, bidding liquidity or asking liquidity that is created with the specific knowledge of what the actual liquidity structure already is for that pair, that's something that the MCP can do very, very quickly via an agentic interface, but would require a huge amount of information ingestion by a user via the normal UI process. So the kinds of like the quality of information that you get via the MCP is much, much richer. And that allows for better financial decisions to be made, whether or not it's you yourself who is accessing this information via your agent, or getting the agent itself to make recommendations is really up to you. That's something that is still in the user's hands. But whatever the outcome, like whatever your specific flow is, at the end of that process, the agent is still required to show you what it is that you're planning to do, and the user still has to confirm it before it executes.
You mean you don't want to loop it to infinity to use all of your liquidity? That's
well, I mean, it's again, that's a user-specific behavior. We don't prescribe anything, but users are free to do what they like.
Yeah, that's a deep cut joke for AI geeks of just the recent week. But yeah, Mark, I think that's brilliant. Mark, I just want to double click on that for a second. It was like it's kind of an insane unlock to all of a sudden be able to use these super intelligent systems to negotiate this stuff that you just used to think about in your head, or like try to figure out what the move is here. And it's like, the thing that I think about this with what you guys have built is carbondefi and Bancor is like designed this system that already makes navigating these markets so much more sophisticated to find these opportunities and to execute on them than you would in any traditional, especially like marketplace, let alone decentralized. And then you get to add that layer of actually negotiating those positions and figuring out what to do with the LLM is kind of insane in terms of the potential here. I just wanted to see if you could like expand on that a little bit, because like I feel like it's really easy to just take all this stuff for granted and be like, oh, cool, it's new and shiny, when we don't realize like, whoa, like a year ago, this kind of stuff would have never even been thought possible.
Yeah. So let's explore this a little. And when it comes to building a web app, you kind of have a let's say a guiding product like archetype that you are presenting to users that you think is going to appeal to the widest possible demographic. And this is like a necessary, I'm going to say concession, right? It's a compromise, because often the systems themselves are much more capable than what the web app would ever suggest they're capable of. And so if you consider what a typical user flow would be like on any exchange, right? They will, log in with their account, let's say into Binance or something. They, fund their account. They decide that they want to perform a trade or whatever. And then on something like Carbon DeFi, you get a little bit more flexibility than that presented to you via the web app, because you've got these ranges and so on and so forth. But in both of these cases, there are highly sophisticated individuals who are much, much fewer, because they, the barrier to entry is much higher, because your level of, the level of sophistication and assumed technical intelligence is much higher. But they will interact with these exchanges via API, right? And so there's the 99% of people interacting with Binance will do it via their browser, using the website that Binance is providing for them. But then there's that 1% that is doing it out of their command line, right? That's seeing the entire order book structure and making decisions on like literal order flow as it's coming in. They might even have a ticker of all of the trades that are being executed at a single time, before deciding, how they're going to trade and that kind of thing. And I think what the AI component is doing here, in speaking to the point that you just made about what's possible, is that now you've got this like this agent, right? This resident expert that's here to help you become that level of sophisticated, that does know how to run those kinds of things. And with the MCP server for Carbon DeFi, you can sit down with your agent and say, how would you assist me in making this kind of complex decision? Or like, what would let's say like a Kelly better, or like log utilitarian like betting or bidding profile look like on this specific token pair? And the agent will say, well, here, let me just pull that data for you. Here's the 500,000 data points that we have from Carbon DeFi's MCP server, and running statistical analysis on this and such would suggest that this is going to be the most utilitarian bidding price and asking price for the token pair that you're asking for. And that's just not something that you could ever build into a user interface that's expected to find the 99% mind share for the users that are using your website. It's just not on the cards. Like, how would you even present that on a website? But now that you've got this expert, this assumed expert that's sitting down with your user, and poring over the data, and that they're asking it questions and that kind of thing, then that makes essentially the assumption that every user could be that level of sophisticated now. And I think that that's a very, I want to say, an exciting time to sort of that's an exciting prospect, but it's also just interesting. It's completely unknown what user flows are going to look like when everyone is sophisticated. So yeah, it's a brave new world, right? We really don't know what things are going to look like and how user behavior is going to change, but it is going to change in a profound way.
So temporarily, at least temporarily, it levels the playing field, yeah. But I want to also pick up what Jen said, and you also, Mark, to some extent alluded to it. Same as what we've seen in my limited interactions with the trading agents on Privex, for example. It is absolutely critical that the instructions that you give to the agent are given in the correct manner. Yeah, the better quality instructions you give, the better quality output the agent can give you. And this is probably a little bit of an underrated feature of these things, that if you actually put some work into the prompt, as it were, your results will improve drastically.
Yeah, and I think there's without getting too far off the beaten path here. I'd say just generally, most agentic technology is still only as capable as the person driving it. And I think that, we're seeing this in sort of tertiary education now, where people are completing degrees without really understanding what it is that, they've got a degree in and that kind of thing. And I would say that even those kinds of people that have completely outsourced their critical thinking skills to an AI are never going to be as capable as the people that have actually understood the topic material that that they're going to be conversing with their AI in their future careers. And that's really, like, I think the paradigm that we're entering into. And so that would probably be the one word of caution here, that I want to remind listeners, is that you really shouldn't be entrusting the AI too much. Like, you want to be the expert that's guiding this highly capable intern, right? But you are its manager, and so the burden of responsibility to understand what it's doing still falls back on you. And I use the term manager here because, even being a manager myself, usually I know what I want people to achieve. But how they do it requires like a very specific kind of skill or knowledge base, that the actual execution itself, is something that requires an expert. And so that's really I think the correct mentality to take to this stuff, not just in carbon DeFi and, agentic trading specifically, but also just all interactions that anyone has with an AI. You need to be the high level, well-read expert that's managing a, technically competent but uncritical intern. And so if you learn about what things like, what a Kelly better is, or a log utilitarian, market participant is doing, and what that kind of decision-making process is, at least at a high level, then you're going to do much better than someone who is, blindly prompting an agent to do something, because, poor management usually results in poor outcomes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that, Mark, because I talk a lot to people who are not AI native and who don't really understand what it's like. Or I'll be in conversations, on the side of conversations where people are talking about AI, and it's like you can tell that they don't really understand it and they think it's witchcraft. And I'll say something like, well, I work with AI every day, and they kind of look at you like you're from outer space. You know what I mean? And it's like there's this whole idea that if you work with AI every day, or you work a lot with AI, it's like you really don't do anything anymore. And it's like you guys have no idea how much work it actually is to work with AI, because it's like you're working with a team, right? You really are. And when you talk about managing, like, that's what it is. Like, when you're serious about using AI and you're using it for a bunch of different things, it's a hell of a lot of work. Like, you got to keep people on the rail, or you got to keep your team on the rails, right? It's in some ways, it's no different than
managing
a team under you and trying to get to your vision accomplished.
And the financial overhead as well is the same, right? Because I've seen poor management in a lot of different situations in my adult life already. And one of the things that usually causes let's say causes that manager's approach to fall under formal revisions is usually when some budget somewhere is getting blown. There was a really great anecdote from Uber recently, where the CTO gave the Uber development team I think unrestricted access to Claude, but with a budget, and they blew through the 12-month token budget in 4 months or something like that. And this is on both sides of the aisle, I would say. People have kind of raised their eyebrows at this, and are holding this up as an example of why the AI narrative is not entirely correct. But I think that the truth of this is actually a lot more subtle, and I haven't seen it discussed yet. And that's that probably the juniors, like, you know, the people that were using the AI are not trained managers, right? They're the workhorses of the organization who are used to the idea that the more work that you can get done, the better. And so they had their AIs like spinning their wheels, effectively, you know, producing a huge amount of stuff that may or may not be, you know, useful. Whereas if, you know, they were trained managers running these AIs, having the AI idle for some length of time would probably have been the, you know, the economic decision, right? It's not about how much work you can get done, but getting the right amount of work done, or at least the right tasks done. And I know that, you know, for maybe all of us here on this call that have interacted with the AI, you know, a lot over the last year, will kind of be very familiar with this idea. Like, the very, very easy to get an AI producing a lot of useless crap, you know, and it will happily do it, you know, ad infinitum until all of your tokens are burned through. But getting it to do the right work and produce the thing that you want quickly and without, you know, spending huge amounts of money on token budgets, is a skill, and it's a management skill.
I just want to
You know, it's
double
funny.
click on something. Sorry, Trace. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Just applaud for everything that Mark just shared. I want to just double down on that. I went to a Claude community event put on by Anthropic here in town this week, and one of my favorite stories was someone paid, like, I feel bad for them, but they paid a whole bunch of money for done for you AI services that were handed over to them, and then they didn't know how to use what was built. So they spent like tens of thousands of dollars only to then have to become AI native to use what was built for them. And that's why they were there. So, I mean, I think that this just highlights this thing. And going back to like AI agents when it comes to trading, when it comes to on-chain activity, the real opportunity here is to grow yourself as the expert, as the coordinator, as the orchestrator, to use the intelligence of the AI to make better decisions, and then feel like you're able to not have to get stuck in so much of the manual monitoring, the manual firing of things, and allowing yourself to still be this real powerful, well-informed orchestrator, where it's like you plus the AI equals 5 instead of 2, right? And that is an order of magnitude better decision making, better outcomes. But you know, my whole thing is just, to the extent that everyone feels inspired to do so, whatever the angle is, becoming AI native within your own skills, your own interests, is just so critical right now, because the not only is the opportunity cost really high, but the creative unlock to actually build and make things is just so phenomenal when applied correctly.
So right before we went live, I heard something, and so I want to be conscious of this. But I think, Mark, you said we started at 3 a.m. your time. So first of all, thank you for meeting us in the middle of the night.
You're
And
welcome.
we are at the hour. So I want to be sensitive to that. But I can't end this stream without, and I know it's not going to be enough time, but could you just tell us a little bit about Mark's secret? You know what I'm talking about. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's not a secret, and I never meant to. Like, I know that that's really great for clickbait and stuff like that. I don't want anyone to think that I've ever sort of, you know, referred to it as my secret or something like that.
That
But
was me.
It was,
That was all
though.
me.
It was, because
was
we were
all-
waiting
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the patent. So it was
Yeah,
a secret.
So yeah, I got the provisional application for this out earlier this year, and so I've started to talk about it publicly. It's for like a tentative upgrade to Carbon, and so I'm sort of in the process now of discussing it with different clients, different potential licensees, and also like expert users of Carbon DeFi today to find out how interesting it is before we dedicate too much resources to building something out. But yeah, essentially, it's a full generalization of bonding curve theory. So I guess I'll try and keep it sort of as high level as I can, so not getting into too much of the like mathematical minutia. But the best way I can explain it is that since Bancor version 1, so going all the way back to 2017. We had this idea of what were called weighted token reserves effectively. And this allowed for bonding curves to take on that same sort of hyperbolic shape that we're all familiar with. So if you imagine the x times y equals k bonding curve, that's kind of just one specific setting. Bancor V1 actually allowed you to set, whatever kind of scalar parameter you wanted, so you could kind of squish the bonding curve out or stretch it out in any way that you liked. So, and this is identical to balancer. So anyone who's familiar with balancer weights, I'm referring to exactly the same theory. But what I was looking at is, okay, is there another way that we can describe this so that we can get even more shapes for bonding curves out of this? Like, is there a grander unified theory of bonding curves out there that no one's discovered yet? And I think I found something like that certainly hasn't been described in the literature before, but has kind of been touched on in like mean value analysis over like the last 400 years by a few different mathematicians over history. And so the best way I can describe it is that when you're on the x times y equals k bonding curve, the what we refer to as spot rates in AMMs is really the marginal rate of trade, or sometimes the first derivative of that bonding curve. And whenever you're performing a swap, you're kind of trading from one marginal rate to another marginal rate, and you get sort of an average rate of those two things. And so I thought, okay, I wonder if I can use that as a universal constructor. So what happens if instead of defining a bonding curve first and then deducing what the mean rate exchange profile is, can we instead prescribe the mean rate exchange profile and then generate a bonding curve from that? And what that has resulted in is this really interesting continuation of the original Bancor V1 theory. And I want you to try and picture this in your mind. It turns out that under this specific parameterization, the Bancor V1 and Balancer and Uniswap and all of these different AMMs from the beginning of DeFi up until now have only been exploring this specific parameter on the open interval between 0 and 1, right? So at a half is exactly the x times y equals k bonding curve. At 0.75 is the 75-25 weighted pool, and so on. But you can never quite get to 0, and you can never quite get to 1 because you encounter these sort of singularities that would usually break the way that theory was organized. But I've reorganized it so that now you can actually break out of that interval. So we've only been exploring between 0 and 1 this whole time, like the last decade. And now, using this new theory, you can explore the entire real number line. So between negative infinity and positive infinity. So just think about how small that interval is that we've been exploring today, between 0 and 1. And now we can explore between negative infinity and positive infinity. And what you find is you get all of these familiar shapes. So for example, instead of hyperbolas, you can also get parabolas. You can get like cubic curves and everything else. And it's all described by the same function. So you only need to put, well, I mean, including the singular cases, you only need to put this very small set of equations into the contracts themselves. And this allows users not only to select their range, but then also the liquidity distribution within that range. So if you're, for example, selling, let's say, ETH between, I don't know, $2,000 and $3,000 or something like that. At the moment, Carbon DeFi prescribes for you a geometric mean of marginal prices, sort of distribution of liquidity. But using this new theory, you could bias your liquidity, between, or towards the bottom or towards the top of that range on a continuum. And I've written this up in a couple of different ways. I've presented it at ETH Prague, at ETH Cluj, presented it at EPFL twice, in Lausanne in Switzerland. I presented at Crypto Valley. It's also been accepted for the proceedings at ETHRES, which is where I presented it at Prague. And so I can share, some of these write-ups and things if anyone's interested in learning more of the details. But yeah, it's effectively a complete, like turning the bonding curve theory literally on its head, rather than defining a bonding curve and deducing this particular liquidity profile. Instead, I say, well, can we define the liquidity profile first and then produce bonding curves that way? And it turns out you can. And if you do it that way, you actually get a very compact set of equations that gives you full generalization to an infinite number of bonding curves, including curves that are impossible to produce using AMM theory as it's been described over the last 10 years.
Amazing, man. Thank you for that short
I'm
intro.
sorry. I know it's I know it's heavy.
No.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it, man. No, it's it could be a couple shows, I'm sure. But yeah, we really just wanted to hear a little bit about it. And
that's amazing.
I won't get you at,
that's insane.
it is amazing.
Honestly, the blog that you were showing earlier, Teresa, I got on a call with Mark, and I think we were on that call for an hour, and it flew by because I just wanted to continue picking his brain. Well, wait a second. So explain this a little bit. Let's get deeper into this. Let's keep going here. So he laughed. That is the short version. I don't think that you can really have a shorter version than that, but to really get into all of it, I mean, it was like we were talking about before, on the previous calls when it was first mentioned. Mark, I mean, how many equations was it total?
I mean, depending on which document. So like the invention disclosure has about 600 equations in it at the moment. And it's worth when I say that this the work that I did was accepted for publication in the proceedings at ETHRES, like that paper is like a formal mathematics paper. So it's split up into lemmas and theorems and propositions and corollaries and that kind of thing. Like it's establishing the new mathematical framework that I think is the better framework for describing all bonding curves, or at least a specific family of bonding curves. And yeah, that's the compact version. So that one, I think I got into something like 20 pages, whereas the full disclosure is probably going to be 1,000 pages, but before it's finished.
Unreal.
And
it's a textbook, really.
And you used mostly AI to create that, right?
Actually, when I started doing the proofs, it was actually really helpful. I found OpenAI's one, so ChatGPT's mathematical capabilities are now useful all of a sudden. Like I think with the last model, basically the whole time I was developing this model, I found none of the AI were at all useful. Like it was a waste of time. I would have to corner it by sort of teaching it the math that we were doing first and then seeing if it could do anything with it. And it was just a complete waste. But over the last 3 or 4 months, something's changed. And all of a sudden, these things are really mathematically savvy. And it was really helpful to collaborate with ChatGPT to make sure that the structure of things is sound, and that there weren't any gaps in the logic with how the proofs were structured and that sort of thing. So no, like the body of work was completed before these things were really capable of understanding it. But it seems now their capabilities are actually there. And yeah, ChatGPT even did a pretty good job of condensing some of the proofs down into making them more compact and helping to get it within the page restrictions available to me and things like that.
So it's not voodoo math then?
I mean, it's always going to be voodoo math.
It's a little Bancor inside joke for everybody listening right now. But
I sent this to Mark in a DM when I saw it. I was like, this is fantastic. It's the voodoo math. I mean, you got it all there. I love the Dr. Mark that he's got across his chest and his plaque. It's just fantastic.
I'm not going to pretend I know a whole lot of what you described, Mark, but what I find absolutely amazing is you put all this effort in, and you've basically come up with a completely new and much more precise and much more smart way of doing something that had been done for the previous decade in a certain way.
Well, if you're interested, I'll be happy to send you the preprint, so the accepted manuscript for Ethres.
My head would explode, but I do want to. I know we're getting to your time limit. You're up in the middle of the night. I do want to just last thing before we go, because it's been burning in my mind for a little while now. I remember you and Jen debating how useful AI was going to be when we were sat in Bangkok. Isn't that right, Teresa?
Super rockstar devs. Yeah. I remember, yes.
Jen was quite positive, and you were quite pessimistic. Not quite pessimistic, but
he was pessimistic.
Yeah, he was a bit pessimistic. and I think it's fair to say that Mark has evolved his position on AI in the 1.5 years since then, isn't it, Mark?
Well, yeah. So here's what you need to know about me. So I'm always a contrarian, right? So when everyone is saying one thing, I'm going to say the other thing. I think this is important to break groupthink, but also I tend to do it when I think that other people don't know why they think something is true, right? Yeah. Like either they're just going with the flow, or they're excited about the narrative or something like that. And then the other thing is that, remember, I'm a trained scientist, right? Like that was my background before DeFi. And I still subscribe to the null hypothesis thing, right? Things, if you've got a claim of a thing, the default assumption is that thing is not true. And I'm happy to spin on a dime. I will change my mind in a heartbeat if you can demonstrate it. And at the time when we were talking in Bangkok, no one had demonstrated really that AI was, I would say at that point, no one had even demonstrated that it was all that impressive yet. There was a lot of promise. There was a lot of future-looking, speculative use cases. But if you reflect on those conversations, I would say that actually the conversation itself has also moved on, right? Like it's now a little bit more moderate. Like the claims have settled down into something that's a little bit more reasonable. And even the CEOs of a lot of these AI companies have started to walk back some of their claims about what AI can do. And this is, and it's here that I'm happy to meet people in the middle, but I'm still going to be contrarian. and I'm still going to say whatever your claim is false until you've demonstrated it.
Prove it.
We could have this debate all over again because I've got so many things going through my head and we can't do it
Maybe
right
we
now.
should. Maybe we should.
But I love to do this with Mark. He plays
but
contrarian,
that's-
and I just love to poke and prod and like pick apart whatever he's saying so that I can understand it better. One, and then two, play devil's myself. So yeah.
But that's how you do science, right? You spend your life trying to prove that the science is wrong. Would that be a fair thing to say?
Yeah, it's one of the things that I've often gotten into arguments with people about, including other people who call themselves scientists. I have to often remind people that science doesn't make truth claims. It only says things aren't true. We actually never know if something's true in science, right? We have models that so far haven't broken, but we still always expect them to break, right? Some models are useful, but that never means that they're true. Scientists never say something's true. They only say that things aren't true, and here is why.
So
I have.
you don't love the phrase "trust the science," then? That
No, I really hate it. Well, it depends. You can trust the science when it's saying that something is provably false. That's when you should trust science. The one thing I hate is scientifically proven. That's the one thing that science doesn't do. It never proves anything.
My toothpaste
But
says
math
that it's
can be proven, though, right, Mark?
to.
Yeah, proof is specifically and explicitly a mathematical construct.
I'm gonna stop jumping in on everybody here.
Yeah, I have one question, Mark, because I'm not going to pretend to understand this like equation flip on bonding curves to the extent that you've designed this. But kind of a quick question, very succinct one, is that could this theoretically really reshape the way that we think about predictable probabilities on markets, trends, and all these things that sort of yield any kind of curve of data in terms of how it can be measured?
Yeah, exactly. So I think it provides, like, let's say, it can provide a different heuristic on what it means to have a certain risk posture in certain environments. So one of the things that I was looking at is how certain markets tend to sort of self-organize around this principle. So I returned to a data set that I generated a few years ago when I was trying to make clear the fact that all bonding curves are really just continuous order books, right? If you would assume that they only trade in one direction. And so one of the data sets that I generated for that was I scraped all of the PlayStation 5 prices from eBay and had a look at what would that look like if it was an order book, because eBay really is kind of an order book now.
Right.
And it turns out that using this theory, there is an exact parameter that describes even today all of the PlayStation 5 prices on eBay, right? So like the market does generate, like it is an emergent phenomenon of something that it seems very fundamental. And I'm also like I spent the last month or two researching Polymarket and Kalshi, and
that's where my mind went with these curves, because of the way that you get both sides of these votes, which gives you ability to. That's exactly where my mind went. I was like, if you can establish that range of a bonding curve, your ability to measure a prediction market with a predictable outcome becomes far more reliable.
Well, where it becomes more useful is in the CDA context. So for those who are unfamiliar with prediction markets, the gentleman who invented the automatic market maker that describes them is named Robin Hanson. And he didn't describe one type of AMM, he described several. So there's like a spherical version of it. There's one called the LMSR, or logarithmic mean scoring rule, which is the one that is mostly used today. There's also a power law one, and so on. There's a bunch of these. And what Polymarket is trying to get done today is to sort of lean away from the AMM concept and create something more like an order book. But the problem there is the same problem that order books have in traditional markets, which is that when people are putting an order in the book, it's representing a future price, right? Not the price right now, right? Like if ETH is currently trading at, $1,005, you're probably going to round down and say, I'll put in my bid at 1,000, right? If the price drops $5, I'm happy to take that. Problem with prediction markets is they want the probability right now, right? Like that's kind of the whole point of these things. They're supposed to generate, or they're supposed to sequester crowd wisdom and turn it into a specific probability for something at any given time. With the order book description or the bonding curve description that I've developed, you can kind of take into account the fear of adversarial selection, or something called lambda shock, in continuous double auction analysis. And these curves basically allow you to say, from whatever the current probability is, let's say some signal is going to come out. So, for example, if there's a prediction market on whether or not the US bombs, Iran in the next 24 hours, you can imagine there's going to be a whole bunch of things over that 24 hours that might affect that probability. Things that Donald Trump publishes to Twitter, or things that news broadcasts are discussing, or something like that. And so whatever the probability is now, you might say, okay, there's a 50% chance he's going to do it. But if he tweets, and he usually tweets at like 9 a.m. or something like that, then the chance might move up to 20%. And so you're not just factoring in what the current probability is, but if you like, what the probability of the probability moving is, and by how much. These kind of curves allow that kind of complex expression. So it could be that this is much more broadly useful, not just in token trading, but also in prediction markets and probability theory.
So cool.
You know how I was talking earlier about like some people draw lines on charts? I was just thinking, like, am I going to be on TradingView one day, and instead of like dragging the Fibonacci, I'll be dragging the Richardson retracement lines? Is that going to happen one day, Mark? Oh man,
absolutely brilliant,
unbelievable, bro.
So when Mark Richardson MCP.
Where in the world are you, Mark? Are you back in Australia?
Yeah, I'm back in Australia for now, but I have to go back to Switzerland in July. I'm teaching at the University of Zurich Blockchain Center for their summer course. So yeah, I'll be back in Europe in about a month.
Amazing.
Thank you so much for being here, all three of you. 4 of you, but Soeren, I don't thank him anymore. But
no need.
Before we cut off the Carbon Crew, is there anything that you just wanted to, like, I feel like we haven't talked to you for a while, Jen, so is there anything that you wanted to say before we end this one?
No, I was going to joke and say I'm teaching the course at the university after Mark, but I figured nobody was going to believe that anyway. No, it's always a pleasure being on here and catching up with you guys. Really, Amateo, I don't think we've had the opportunity to be on a COTI Confidential with you, at least not recently, so nice to see you on here as well and to join us. And no, I think, Tracer, you said you were going to share the different links and things. I know that somebody in the community, you guys have such a great community. I see the comments and stuff throughout the call, and you were going to share the links. Otherwise, no, I don't think so. I think we pretty much covered everything that we've got going on that at least is public at the moment that we can speak about. There's always that.
There's the
but no,
hinting at
always
alpha
a pleasure.
right there.
Yeah, always a pleasure being on here. Thank you guys for having us, of course.
The pleasure was all ours, and that's not a cliche in this case. That's scientifically proven. The pleasure is what all ours.
Scientifically, mathematically proven.
It's scientifically not disproved yet that the pleasure was all ours, but it was. Honestly, it's been so long since we've seen you guys, and trust me, if I could twist Amateo's arms and get him to pony up some money so me and Tracer could go to Switzerland and listen to Mark, we would go. No questions asked.
I'm not gonna understand.
You're very kind. Thank you.
No, and Mark,
Only for you to
this
sit
is what
there
I
and not
wanted.
understand any of it, Soeren. Come on.
Yeah, because it would really it would be all about the tacos at the end of the day. That's what it's all about.
So, Mark, like we know you got a lot of stuff going on, but here's what I was going to ask you at the end of the show to kind of set up the next one. But can we get you on sometime in the next year when you have some time? I'd really like to talk to you about, not about COTI, not about carbon. I want to pick your brain about quantum and its threat to blockchain. So I'm hoping that we can have that chat in the next year when you have some time. It'd be really, really fun. And I'll be bugging Jen about it, and you can let us know when maybe you have some time to do that. I think that would be really
You
special.
already know where his position's going to be. Remember this. He already said he's the contrarian, you know?
Of course.
So, but
Right,
it's going to be
I
fun
wanna
to
hear
hear
it.
him really go into this.
Yeah,
It
I
always
think-
is.
I
I'd be
think we
deli-
are. Yeah, go on, Mark.
I'd be delighted, and I think we can do it sooner rather than later. I think that this is a
Relevant.
a topic that more people should know about. So yeah, let's get something on the calendar soon. I'd be happy to do it
Awesome.
even this month if you want.
I would,
Because
dude.
the context
yes.
is very different than what AI was 1.5 years ago. You're right, we may be at the same stage, but the context is very, very different.
Yeah.
And in some ways, really, they kind of go hand in hand. So I think it's really, I want to talk more about it. And man, you're the number one person I want to talk to about this. So I really look forward to that.
Yeah, me too.
Thank
you.
I'm on a Spaces to talk about this very thing for quantum chain tomorrow. So, you know,
Wow.
Trace, we could have done this today. He would have helped me out for what I'm supposed to do.
No.
Like, what is
Listen to
this?
the
No.
recording.
I-
Prepare for your call tomorrow.
Hey, we can keep
I
him up
asked
till
first.
6 a.m. He can pull all-nighter. We can do, you know, I'm just kidding. Mark, I'm looking forward to learning from you in that conversation as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And before we kick you out, Amateo, like we started this episode, you know, you're becoming a permanent fixture here, but maybe in the next week, can we do another one? And let's talk about night and nightfall and everything else that's going on. But specifically, it'd be nice to kind of dig into these this night thing. It'd be really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, and friendly reminder to everybody too. I mean, season 4 just started,
Yeah.
right? So you
Good
just
call out.
announced that Carbon DeFi is back for season 4 of COTI Earn. So I saw that the site was all updated. You know, I actually have a blog in the works so that we can get it out on the Bancor blog and within our community, you know, revisiting it from the last couple of days as well.
Let's
But
do
to
that.
anybody who is tuning in who isn't, you know, on top of the Carbon DeFi Bancor news or the COTI news, there is the COTI Earn campaign that's still ongoing and just starting its 4th season.
Yeah,
So
thank you for that plug, Jen, that I absolutely forgot about, our own Earn platform. So definitely check that out. The thing that's great about that's super cool. It does require a little bit, I think, of manual intervention here, but you set up the agent using the skills and your agent starts deploying on Carbon DeFi. That agent can also connect to Earn and earn for you on Earn while it's
Yeah.
on Carbon. I think that's, you know, all the dots are sort of connecting here, which is really, really
Mhm.
cool. So definitely go check out the latest season of Earn, play around with these agents and start earning with your agent. And Jen, Mark, it's always a pleasure. And it's really a joy to collaborate together.
always. Thank you.
You know what,
Thank
guys?
you so much.
COTI Confidential is into its 3rd season. When Soeren and I started this, it was all about not us talking, right? Not just us, right? Having guests, having community members. So that's why episodes like this are really, really special. And having Carbon DeFi, Bancor, Jen, Mark, you guys on the stream again. It was fun to have Glenn a little while ago, right? Maybe we can get him back on one. He's a cool guy. I'm following him on X, but I want to thank you all for being here so much, Mark, especially for being with us so late. This is episode 8. What are we looking forward to? We'll see Amateo in about a week. We'll talk night. And in a month or so, we're going to get back with Mark. And we'll bring in Jen for this one too, because come on, Jen, you just got to be there, right? So in about a month, and we'll talk quantum.
I will be there.
This
So
is
welcome
us.
to join. I will be there. I wouldn't pass it up.
Literally us from coast to coast and around the world. Thank you for being here, and we will see you all next time. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Cold so slick, circus stay garbled. Encrypted hustle, no chains, no marbles. Faster than the rest, cost stays humble. Breaking through the game, watch others crumb. Nobody do it like this. Circuits in the mist, faster, cheaper, sharper, crypto alchemist. Others stuck in the lane, we flipping the twist. Gobble circuits, baby, we the future, don't miss. Others move slow, we quantum speed. Blocks they can't touch, fulfilling the need. Chains bound tight, but we unshackled. While they debug, our code is tackled. What they can't do, we already done. Their game outdated, we just begun. Algorithms flex, they can't compete. Circus guard.